We currently have a very high degree of clarity around the debut date of an XRP spot ETF. November 13th is the date. You will see why I am so certain that it will either be right on November 13th or perhaps a little bit earlier. In fact, it could be a little bit sooner, and there is a universe in which it could be pushed a little bit later. Thus, we undoubtedly received the launch window as it has been disclosed thus far. I'll go into detail on how we know this. We had a tale, which I shared on my channel in the last few days, so it's sort of intriguing. Spot ETFs, for Litecoin, Solana, and HAR went operational without the express consent of the SEC. And it was only a few days ago. However, it did not occur for XRP. And to show why, I created a video. There was some conjecture on the decision-making process involved, but we were aware that it was related to the actual filing of the ETFs. We are certain of that. Additionally, the Litecoin, Solana, and HAR ETFs were filed so that the SEC was not required to explicitly approve them. Therefore, when ETFs are filed, they are typically done in a fashion that causes the SEC to communicate with the company that is filing for the ETF. Additionally, approval is necessary, but it is a choice. Filing it that way is not required. Simply put, it has been standard practice, and filing it that way has traditionally increased the likelihood that the SEC will be lenient. For these ones, however, they didn't do that. So, the spot ETFs for Barcelona and Litecoin got through despite the government shutdown. I then spent an entire video explaining why it didn't work out for XRP. Well, now that something has changed, it will. And I'll be emphasizing that here. Because of this, the US government is currently in shutdown mode and will remain so for some time to come. It could end at any moment, but there isn't any proof that it will happen very soon. The launch of any cryptocurrency ETFs was not anticipated. So, when we learned about this, it was kind of interesting. However, a fresh tale has emerged. In case you missed the story at the beginning of this video, this adds to what I was just getting caught up on. The addition to it is this. This is quite large. As if it will happen. It will go live, just as the spot XRP ETF. As far as I am concerned, that is nearly a given. Eleanor Terrett, a former analyst for Fox Business News, wrote a piece for Crypto in America. Will XRP be the next crypto ETF to hit Wall Street, is the title of this article. Yes, XRP will undoubtedly make its way to Wall Street. Warning, spoilers ahead. After filing an updated S1 last Friday, Canary Capital's XRP spot ETF might be the next cryptocurrency fund to make its way to Wall Street. I should also mention that this was filed a week ago. In a technological sense, the information was accessible to the general public. She located it. For the past week, no one has been aware of this. If you're an XRP holder, this shift is actually significant. No one was aware of it. She is good. So, give her a lot of respect for battling this. Then she said, the filing quietly modified on October 24th removes the delaying amendment that gives the SEC discretion over when the registration becomes effective, clearing the way for a potential November 13th launch, assuming NASDAQ approves the crucial Form 8A to allow it to list. We're close there, which is why I stated that it's not absolutely guaranteed. Indeed, in theory, the SEC or EC might block it, particularly if they return from government shutdown mode. However, that seems extremely unlikely. This SEC is clearly pro-crypto. Oh, I'm grateful. Thank heavens for the shift in the administration. In any case, Bitwise and Canaries Move builds on the same legal mechanism they used to launch their Solana, Hedera, and Litecoin ETFs this week. They did this by utilizing the 20-day statutory waiting period under Section 8A of the Securities Act of 1933. Which states that a registration statement becomes effective 20 days after filing unless the SEC rules otherwise. That's what I was talking about, people. These companies might have filed with the SEC in any case. And then you wouldn't be able to contact the SEC. That's considered a drawback, and if you want to be kind, the SEC might not approve. In the past, you would file in a fashion that required approval from the SEC or else it would not proceed. However, the other method of filing it is the one she mentioned above. It simply goes online automatically after 20 days after you file it. The SEC can, of course, give you the finger and put a stop to it during that time. They can, but it just goes online automatically without that. Thus, this was intriguing. This is something I covered in my last video on the subject. It was intriguing since Canary, the company that made the modification, has at least two, I believe, and XRP is most likely going to go live on or by November 13th. Therefore, I believe I might be wrong. Canary has 1, 2, or possibly 3 of the ETFs that went live this week, but if you want the precise details, just Google them as they might be a little inaccurate. Well, they filed Solana, Litecoin, and HBAR differently than they did XRP. We discussed the reasons why that would be the case and why it should be handled differently, particularly in light of XRP's legal history, and we made some educated guesses about it. But XRP's unquest like this is true. XRP received different treatment. In the manner that each firm submitted them, XRP was handled differently than HAR, Solana, and Litecoin. Canary, which recently saw those coins go live once more, has now determined that this is Friday of last week once more. However, as a community, we only recently learned about it. Their filing for XRP has since been modified. A week ago, they completed the task. We recently learned, therefore we can be very certain that this will go live on or before November 13th. Anyway, the article goes on. Paul Atkins, the chair of the SEC, expressed support for the strategy by complimenting MapLight, a business that used the auto-effective way to go public during the closure. And right here is the post that he made. He appears to enjoy this, I guess. He actually wrote this on October 28th, after all. He stated that the IPO market is still available for business following MapLight's offering yesterday. During the government shutdown, companies are going public through the process that Congress originally intended. Therefore, he appears to be the SEC's chair. This man is in charge of the fucking thing. He really likes this approach. According to him, this is how it was meant to be. Therefore, do you believe that someone at the SEC will stop this now that that is true? It is technically feasible. I don't think it will happen. It's definitely not something I'm depending on. In any case, peace endures. While the SEC continues to operate on a limited basis during the government shutdown, other issuers have been scrambling to update their S1S in order to bring products to market since Tuesday's launches, which broke the Gendler-era tradition that all crypto ETFs start trading on the same day, regardless of filing date. With the removal of the delaying amendment and a target launch date of mid-November pending exchange approval, Fidelity, Vanik, and Canary all updated their Solana ETF registrations this week. There you have it. Canary was imitated by other businesses. Oh, wait, they say. We therefore, if you're Fidel, you're thinking, wait a minute. We wish to compete in this field, but we have put a self-imposed hold on our own ETF filing. Well, perhaps we should modify the filing. Let's do that one, all right? Let's take care of that. They completely imitated them, and they all did it, dude. In any case, Canary would have a further early advantage over other issuers with XRP ETF applications, such as Bitwise, Franklin Templeton, 21 Shares, and Grayscale, who have not yet updated their registrations, if its XRP ETF were launched on November 13th. She concludes the piece by pointing out the following. A government reopening might have an impact on Canary's planned debut date. According to ETF experts, the launch could proceed more quickly if the SEC reopens earlier and the filing satisfies all standards. It might be postponed if staff members return before the 13th and offer more remarks. All right? And it's quite acceptable to mention that. She isn't making any promises, then. She is acting like a responsible reporter. I'm just expressing my thoughts with you because I'm an opinion guy. Naturally, I always try my best to provide the facts as truthfully as I can, given what I've learned. Well, assuming the SEC reopens, I think it will launch by November 13th, if not earlier. Now, since this is not the kind of thing the SEC undertakes when it is in shutdown mode, there is essentially no possibility if it does not reopen. Therefore, I wouldn't rely on it. But consider this. A week has already passed since the filing was modified. That was 20 days later, on October 24th. Yes, November 13th is that date. It will therefore be approaching quickly here. Additionally, I will state that there is an unusual circumstance that causes it to be delayed, regardless of whether it occurs sooner or later. Ellen Terrett is right when she says that may occur. Well, it doesn't seem likely to me. However, you will still be approved for a freaking spot XRP ETF even if that occurs. It is still on the way. In theory, there might be a technicality that slows it down. I'm not counting on it, all right. However, you will still receive clearance if it does. XRP is not going to receive any distinct treatment. This situation doesn't make any logic at all. My humble view is that. Folks, I'm just saying. In addition, many market analysts anticipate that things will improve at the moment this is occurring. Therefore, even if the market price of XRP declines, it is still feasible that the price will drop more, as I mentioned in my previous video. According to practically every expert I follow, this market cycle is still ongoing. Additionally, they have good hit rates. High scores for accuracy. Imagine, then, that the market begins to improve. This is news for you. Talk about talking about stoking the flames. There is little doubt that this might serve as a spark for an upward move. And if it's not this, it might be something else, like XRP, which will still function. Simply put, this might be the ideal moment for a huge XRP bull run. Let's see. I do not provide financial advice. Nothing I say or do should cause you to buy or sell something. That is a really, really awful idea.